Sometimes when I have nothing better to do, I like to go on the Internet Archive and check out what old versions of official websites for musicians looked like. I wasn't really conscious of the fact that there were people behind the music I was hearing back when these were still active, so it's interesting to see how creatives in the industry began adapting to this relatively new medium. Back then, the web wasn't as interconnected as it is now, so having a dedicated website was the best way for bands and artists to connect and interact with their audiences. And the freedom of the early decentralized internet allowed for a lot of personality to shine through with their design and interactivity. Granted, a lot of these are difficult to spelunk in now from the death of Adobe Flash or just the general lack of interest in archiving every nook and cranny, but for my purposes of finding funny little oddities, this site existing at all is more than enough. I've found plenty of interesting details and stories in my search through these archives, but there's one in particular that I keep finding myself thinking about for some reason, and I feel as though it's a little anecdote that more people should know about. Honestly, there isn't even a whole lot to this story, but what is there paints an interesting picture with a surprising amount of ironic twists. Or if nothing else, I just think it's kind of funny. So to start us off, if it's personality we're looking for, then we need to turn to one of the most personality-filled genres, hip-hop. And if there's one rapper with, for lack of a better term, the most personality, it would be Kanye West. Now I think it's important to give a quick aside to talk about my personal thoughts on Kanye, which are surprisingly few in number. I feel like just due to his reputation and from my taste in music, I can say I respect the reasons he became popular from a distance. I obviously like songs of his, but the usual experience I have with listening to a Kanye album is unfortunately giving up on it a few tracks in. Not even because they're bad necessarily, he's a great producer and was at least at some point definitely a talented songwriter, but even before his more recent controversies, he just wasn't the kind of personality I wanted to actively listen to or engage with. That is, with one exception, his 2008 album 808s and Heartbreak. I don't know what it is, but from its more personal and vulnerable lyrics spurred on by the loss in Kanye's life at the time, to its cold electronica production making the songs more accessible while still complementing the themes of introspective emotional detachment, to even the conceit of it being a pop record, meaning it's not focused on Kanye's overconfident persona, despite it being the album the most about Kanye's mind up until that point, gave me the perfect opportunity to give me an accessible glimpse into what all the hype was really about. Man, this is so good. If only Eminem had made this. Obviously, like any other big star, Kanye had his own personal website, that being KanyeUniversity.com. Get it? Like university. Now that I think about it, why was Kanye so obsessed with college? Nowadays, Kanye University is mainly known as the place where Ye posted to his personal blog, and rightfully so because some of this is gold. However, outside of that, the site still had all the usual trappings of an official musician's website. The first place I usually go in these archives is the news page, since there's a surprising amount of events that just aren't substantial or frankly interesting enough for most people to be documented anywhere. And obviously, I usually try to look at a point in time around when an album I like came out to get an idea of how the project was being promoted to the artist's fans at the time. And for 808s and Heartbreak, you get a lot of the usual stuff, like a tour announcement or Kanye posting photos of random models to his blog, but there was one promotional event the site was hosting that caught my eye more than anything else on here. In early November of 2008, a few weeks before 808s and Heartbreak would release, Kanye University hosted a contest where site members were tasked with creating a commercial for the upcoming album. Unfortunately, from what I could find, the initial announcement post for this contest wasn't archived, so it's unclear when exactly the event started or if there were any specific rules or prizes involved. And even outside of that, I wasn't able to find any reference to this contest anywhere on the wider internet from the time, including a lot of the entries people made that might still be publicly available. But regardless, on December 2nd, the winner of the contest would officially be announced, and the results were polarizing to say the least. The winner of the contest was a user by the name of Kakes, with the runner-up named Adam also mentioned in the announcement post. The reaction from users was mixed. There were some that complimented both of the entries evenly, but most of the comments were confused and even some outraged that Adam's entry didn't win. Now, unfortunately, it seems as though Adam's video had been deleted and was lost to time, or at least I wasn't able to find it anywhere, so there's no easy way to compare these two in terms of quality. However, some of these comments do give us some details on what Adam's entry was like. Apparently, most people were really impressed by the special effects, which paid paid homage to those old monochrome iTunes commercials. Well, on the other hand, people speculated that one of the reasons Adam didn't win was that there wasn't much emphasis on specifically advertising the album, unlike the winning video. But still, the competition must have been pretty tight if something like that only got to second place. And fortunately for us, Kakes's entry is still publicly available, so let's finally see what they did to eke them this victory.
Too much stuff on my heart right now, man. I gladly risk it all right now.
No more wasting time. You can't wait for life. We're just racing time. Where's the finish line?
That's it?
I think this is the most defeated I've ever felt witnessing the aftermath of a 16-year-old hip-hop fan contest. Like, I'm not here to put down the creativity of some guy in 2008 who, for their sake, I'm hoping was a teenager, but there's just so many things wrong with the aftermath of this contest. First, in terms of quality that this won to begin with. Second, that it won against Adam's video, which sounded much more interesting. And thirdly, that Adam's entry has seemingly been lost to the ether, so the only legacy this contest still has is the fact that it shows this, of all things, as their winner. Well, I mean, it's not like the stakes were that high. Like I said, I don't even think there was a prize for this contest. But still, I can't even think of some technicality they could have used to put these entries in the places they did. Again, some people in the comments did think this happened because Adam's submission wasn't directly about advertising the album, so it lost a bit of its qualification, despite how impressive it was. And I mean, just looking at this, clearly that was the only thing separating these two in terms of quality. And you want to know something kind of ironic on the topic of quality? Underneath the announcement post, the winner actually commented saying that what he ended up submitting was actually a rough draft version of his entry. He did end up uploading the finished version with actual visuals and stuff to his YouTube channel, but I guess just accidentally submitted the rough draft that was also public somehow. I don't know how I can be mad at that, that's just funny. And another perhaps surprising thing about this is that both Adam and Kakes have seemingly gone on to have decently stable careers in video production, believe it or not. Our Adam is a man named Adam Saywitz, who after graduating from New York School of the Arts in 2010 has been an editor and cinematographer, working with an impressive amount of documentarians and news organizations, whose projects have been nominated and won a handful of various filmmaking and journalism awards. His most well-known gig would probably be his editing work he did on Emmy-nominated political pieces with the New York Times. Now I know those guys don't have the best reputation, but Adam seemingly never touched any of their problematic topics, and from his other work unaffiliated with them, it seems like he doesn't hold the same views they do about all of that, which is nice. Honestly, seeing all the stuff this guy's been up to, it's kind of funny to think that one of the footnotes of his career is that he made an Apple commercial parody for an online Kanye West promotional contest while in college. Well, I say that, but this isn't actually the last time Adam and Kanye would cross paths. It probably won't surprise you, given today's story, that Adam did a decent amount of filming and editing work on live hip-hop performances and general underground urban subculture earlier into his career, including in March of 2012, when he filmed and edited footage of the live debut show of producer duo Tonight, which happened to have a short cameo appearance by Kanye West. 2012 was also around the time he shifted from what he was doing to the more serious journalistic work he's known for now, so it's just kind of serendipitous that Kanye West of all people is the bookend to that arc of his career. And as for the winner of our contest, Kakes, he's actually a man named Kirk Taylor, who graduated from Toronto Film School and made a name for himself as an editor around the wider Toronto area. Yes, contrary to all the stuff I've shown you, he did eventually become good at editing. His career isn't as mainstream or prestigious as Adam's comparatively speaking, but it is still important to go over for our story. Kirk's forte seems to be more about making art surrounding community efforts, both local and international. One of the first big things I found from him was a short film he made while in film school titled Transitions, about a fictionalized version of a real local artist he became inspired by for her helping the local community. The way I know about this was because Kirk uploaded a local TV program that spotlights up-and-coming filmmakers from the university that had done a segment about him in the film. On one hand, this episode is a neat showcase of a young creative engrossed in the process. You can definitely feel Kurt's passion for making this movie and for the chance to tell a story about an inspiration of his, even if you do see him fall into some typical pitfalls of an early director, like a lack of communication or preparation. Although, on the other hand, the show does also have sort of a dry, playfully cynical sense of humor, so they do like to lean into Kirk's naivete a bit throughout. And that's not for no reason. When he was interviewed about why he chose this artist as a subject, he tried to compare her to other humanitarian public figures, but for some reason he insisted on always including Bono from U2 in that list.
It's almost like saying if you met Gandhi or Bono or somebody that you consider a humanitarian before they became huge. Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Lady Diana, Bono.
Jumping ahead a bit, the biggest project that he's had his hands in would be the documentary he helped edit titled A Ray of Hope that premiered in 2024. It's a film that attempts to highlight the ongoing struggles of the Tamil people who fled to Canada to avoid persecution within the late 90s and early 2000s Sri Lankan Civil War, a topic I clearly don't know enough about to broach, but from the stuff I've read definitely seemed like a noble thing to shine light on. So yeah, despite the not stellar first impression, Kirk Taylor turned out to be a pretty upstanding, respectable guy. And so for that, I formally hereby apologize to you, Kirk, for making fun of what's most likely one of the first things you ever professionally edited while in university that you probably don't even remember that you made. So now that we've learned all of that, seeing both of these entries now through the lens of them being starts to lifelong, passionate careers in the arts is honestly really endearing. These two people aren't exactly substantive or forgotten creative figures or anything, but it is still surreal in a way that I never would have known these guys existed if I wasn't bored one day and wondered what wacky misadventures Kanye West was up to back in December of 2008. Truth be told, this is one of those videos that wasn't really made with a point or a thesis in mind. I just thought that this was an interesting little story, and I thought at least one other person out there would find it funny. That's really all the justification you need for something like this. If this video has any kind of point, it would be, well, one, you should support any local filmmaker you can, because you never know what they've been through, but also that the Internet Archive is an incredibly important resource. I think the thing that I really like about the Internet Archive is its benevolence, because sure, it's got a ton of important historical or academic resources on its servers, but they take an equal amount of pride in archiving those as they do the results page of a contest on the official Kanye West fan site that led to a mini community controversy. If you know me, you know my favorite part of media preservation is finding those overlooked, humanizing stories that you get once you've dug through all of the culturally significant stuff. And the Internet Archive and the Wayback Machine are probably the most important parts of that process. The archive has been under attack by stingy copyright holders and people questioning what morally deserves to be archived since as early as the mid-2000s, which is honestly understandable given how much of an open archival resource it is, but I think those people's concerns really never outweigh the fact that a whole bunch of history, big and small, would undeniably be lost if a site like that became completely unusable. For a good contemporary example, we recently saw the deletion of every single MTV News article since the site's inception, meaning that 2 decades worth of pop cultural news reporting was just completely wiped off the internet with no notice whatsoever. A decent chunk of information that I and plenty of other people use in their research came directly from MTV News, so now a ton of important stories or interesting details will go either completely uncorroborated or will become completely undiscoverable. Now, of course, organizations like the Internet Archive have made searchable catalogs of archived articles because they're on the right side of history, but even they don't have everything. And with how deep people like me go spelunking through these archives, you hit the bottom of what's available pretty quick. It's just disappointing to think that there were certain interesting musical tidbits that I had found that only existed in now inaccessible articles that I really wanted to share with people, but now I have no source for at all. And that's just the dumb bullshit I care about. Imagine all the actually important stuff that no one bothered to archive because they thought these sites would be around forever. And that's just one example of a very concerning systemic pattern that we need to find a way to fight as soon as possible. But with that in mind, I think we should all step back and acknowledge that this is a systemic issue that today's story just happens to be in the vicinity of. Of all the videos to give the message about how capitalism incentivizes corporations to destroy important cultural history for short-term gain, this is not the one. So I think a better conclusion for this would be to not let the crushing fear of lost legacy distract you from the fact that the things we do have access to can be kind of funny. And so that was the tumultuous story of the Kanye West 808s and Heartbreak commercial contest. I hope you enjoyed. And if in the night you hear them talk the coldest story ever told, then make sure to like this video. And if you're a sick fuck who likes a quick fuck, then you should subscribe as well. And I'll see you all in the next video.